Bill Hanson, Billhanson. Almost every phase, I was always uh, apprehensive about trying something new, but it don't. And a lot of times, we would start something, and I wouldn't have a clue as to how it was going to work out. But I don't know. I guess for the grace of God, things worked out fairly good for me because, and I think it had a lot to do with dedication and a little bit of prayer and just having worked with my dad for so many years and saw how he worked. Uh, and things just seemed to come naturally for me. And just recently, I kind of remarked to someone that things always seem to come easy to me. And they looked at me like, you must be crazy. But uh, it has. It's with just a few times when I would get into a scrub, but mostly things really went very smoothly and easily. Look to people who are successful and ask them their opinion as to how it should go about. I know my number two daughter, she's just recently went freelance, and so she got several uh, opinions about how she should move and go around about getting the getting into a new job, and just check with people that already have been down that road.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Me and my brother, who have always worked closely together, we grew up uh, working in the store, and our dad taught us how to meet people, and we met a lot of people. And uh, then Daddy got into sawmilling and also hauling logs and hauling pulpwood. And so it was a natural progression that we would go into some kind of construction. And I had been in the Army. I was a accountant or bookkeeper when I was in the Army. When I got out, we continued to work on the sawmill. And Bob kept telling me that we needed to go to Atlanta and start working on uh, constructing houses and apartments. And we joined the Residential Carpenters Union, and they got us a job on a apartment complex that was about halfway through the completion. And we started off with on an apartment, and we had an old 1962 Chevrolet car that we drove to Atlanta every day. And eventually that played out, and we got another job with a home builder, and it just progressed from there.
So how long did you work for, I guess, construction companies before you thought about starting your own?
Well, we first started with a big company. It was Ryland Homes, and this was in the early 70s, and we we were what they called a company crew, and they built panelized houses. And there was a group of guys from Maryland who worked on those houses, and they would just run like a house of fire because they said you got to do these fast if we're going to make any money. And we'd work like wildfire, and then we'd mess up something. So a couple of times I mentioned to the guys, maybe if we slowed down a little bit, it might go a lot easier and we could really do it quicker. And I think it had something to do with people from New England and people from the deep South. But Bob and I eventually got our own crews. And he had his crew and I had my crew. And we worked that way for a couple of years. And then the Ryland Homes decided they were going to sub out the construction of the panelized houses, which they let us go at that point because we were company crews. And I found out later that my crew had the highest grossing crew of any crew that they had in Ohio, Maryland, Atlanta, and Houston, Texas.
Wow.
So I was the top grossing construction of those panelized houses. So as a result, we got laid off, got canned, and 4 or 5 of us got together and formed, and I didn't really want to do this, but the company was called Billy L. Hanson Contractors, which I've never gone by since then. But we worked that way for a couple of years, and then we kind of dissolved. And I got left holding unemployment tax and several things, and I finally got that worked out, and I got some good guys, and I started doing mostly exteriors on the siding of the houses and the overhangs, and sort of specialty work on houses.
Paige Michaels, Paige Michaels. I think what it was a lot of, I had to do something. I was looking for other jobs, like things like anything, really, like Little Caesars or Barnes & Noble or office jobs, whatever. Not really having a clear goal or anything like that. And I realized that I needed a career in something that I actually cared about. So I had thought about it for a while. I even considered being like a dental assistant, a dental hygienist at one point. But I never enrolled because I didn't want to. Because I found out that if you really want to do something, you do it. And so I worked for just a brief moment for a different dog groomer. They were going to help me and kind of teach me a little bit. That didn't quite work out, but in the meantime, this really great groomer told me about Nash Academy, which was where I went to school, and that they were for dog grooming, and I looked into it, and I think I enrolled the next week. So, because it just made sense. I've always liked dogs, so that's why I went back to school and then went to dog grooming school, because it just made sense. I think that the most difficult part was I was really lucky. I'm married. I have a good husband who was supportive of this. And where the school was actually in Kentucky, and living in Georgia, it meant kind of packing everything up and me going for 2 months to just learn all that I could. So that was kind of difficult because it's not, Kentucky from where I was at was a 10-hour, 8-hour drive away. So that was probably the most difficult part, was just the fact that in order to do it, I had to make no money for a couple months, leave my family, and just kind of do it completely on my own. And that was the most difficult part as far as that goes. I can't remember the other part of the question.
Just the most difficult part about just changing careers in general.
Yeah, I think that, like with anything, there are risks that you don't know about, that you can't really anticipate. The main thing was am I going to be good at this? Am I going to like this? Because it seems like a very easy thing until you get into it, and dogs try to bite you, and you have to keep them calm and not hurt them. And so I think the most difficult part about changing careers is just the fact that I went from something that I knew very well and was very easy to something that I didn't know how easy or hard or any of it would be. That unknown.